Everyone says love gives life meaning. But what if that very desire to be loved, to belong, becomes the chain that quietly steals a man's freedom? We grow up being told that success means finding the one, building a family, and living happily ever after. Yet look closer at the world today. Many men are walking away from that promise, choosing solitude over the chaos of romance. And perhaps they've never been freer. Most people still see the single man as incomplete, as if he's waiting for a woman to fix him or make his life meaningful. But a man who chooses solitude is not running away from love, he's reclaiming his own power. He's rejecting a system that measures his worth by how much he can give sacrifice or provide. When a man stands alone, he is no longer a servant to emotional drama or societal pressure. He becomes the master of his own time, energy, and purpose. Men are often told that relationships make them whole, that marriage will stabilize their lives. But in truth, many relationships today drain men financially, emotionally, spiritually. Once the initial excitement fades, they find themselves trapped in a cycle of constant demands, more money, more effort, and more proof of love. Their energy, the same force that could build empires, is consumed by the endless task of keeping someone else happy. Solitude, on the other hand, gives back what love often takes away: focus, discipline, peace. Imagine a man who wakes up in his own rhythm, not to an alarm set by someone else's expectations. He trains his body, builds his business, shapes his destiny. No one nags him about where he's been or how much he's earned. He travels when he wants, eats when he wants, and answers to no one but himself. That's not loneliness, that's sovereignty. The single man isn't incomplete. He's unbound. Yet society calls him selfish, immature, and afraid of commitment. But perhaps he simply understands something others don't, that dependence disguised as love is still dependence. Many men who chose solitude didn't lose faith in women. They lost faith in illusions. They saw the cost of giving their peace away for the sake of fitting in. A man who stands alone learns to nurture himself, building meaning from within, rather than seeking validation. He isn't running from intimacy, he's redefining it. His love is directed toward growth, mastery, and brotherhood, not endless emotional negotiation. And from that place of quiet strength, he sees what most can't, that freedom is not the absence of love, but the ability to choose it without fear or need. So when people ask, why stay single? Perhaps the better question is, why give up your peace? The man who chooses solitude isn't escaping life, he's facing it without illusions. He understands that power begins where dependency ends. And that realization, silent, simple, unshakable, is what separates the man who survives from the man who reigns. We've been conditioned to believe that relationships complete us, that somewhere out there, another person holds the missing half of our soul. But this idea, so romantic, so comforting, is also the very reason so many men lose themselves. When a man believes his happiness depends on someone else's affection, he hands over the keys to his own peace. The moment he starts chasing love as proof of worth, he becomes trapped in a game he can never win. Relationships, as they are often built today, don't liberate men, they consume them. In the beginning, there's excitement, attention, passion, the illusion of being understood, but soon after expectations rise. She wants more time, more control, more validation. And in trying to meet those expectations, he begins to lose parts of himself. He sacrifices his dreams, his discipline, even his identity just to maintain harmony. But harmony built on compliance is just silent suffering. Many men today find themselves drained, not because they lack love, but because they give too much of it to those who don't truly see them. They become providers, protectors, problem solvers, everything but free. And when the weight of it all breaks them down, society doesn't comfort them. It mocks them. Be a man, they say. You chose this. But what if the real strength lies not in endurance, but in detachment. To choose solitude is to step outside this cycle of emotional taxation. It's to stop seeking approval and start seeking truth. The single man learns to give himself what he once begged from others: peace, validation, purpose. He no longer needs to prove his worth through a partner's happiness. Instead, he builds a life where happiness is a byproduct of mastery, not a bargain of affection. This doesn't mean hating women or rejecting connection. It means seeing relationships for what they truly are, a choice, not an obligation. When a man understands this, love transforms from a need into a gift, from dependency into clarity. He can still love deeply, but now from a place of power, not weakness. And when that happens, when a man stops chasing validation, something inside him shifts. He no longer fears being alone. He sees solitude not as emptiness, but as a mirror reflecting who he truly is. That's when real growth begins. It is only when a man can sit in silence without reaching for distraction that he finally understands what freedom feels like. At the heart of every man's struggle with relationships lies one quiet fear, the fear of being alone. It's this fear that pushes many into commitments they aren't ready for, into proving themselves through sacrifice, or staying in situations that drain their spirit. But solitude, when understood correctly, isn't a punishment, it's the cure. It strips away illusions and reveals the truth of who you are when no one else is watching. Modern relationships often blur the line between love and dependency. Many men believe they need a woman to feel complete, to be seen as mature, or to validate their existence. But the moment you tie your worth to someone else's affection, you surrender control of your emotional state. You become reactive, living by her moods, her approval, her attention. And when that attention shifts, your sense of stability crumbles. This is not love. It's emotional slavery. A man who embraces solitude learns a different rhythm. He finds peace in the sound of his own thoughts. He doesn't seek distraction in dating apps or temporary flings to fill the silence. Instead, he uses that silence to rebuild his strength, to sharpen his focus, and to rediscover what truly drives him. Alone time becomes a forge, painful at first, but transformative. He stops seeking to be understood and begins to understand himself. This transformation often scares others. They'll say you're cold, detached, even broken. But in truth, you've simply stopped playing a game that was never built for your freedom. Society profits from distracted men, men who chase pleasure instead of purpose, approval instead of power. But a man who masters solitude is unpredictable. He cannot be manipulated by guilt, flattery, or fear. He becomes self-contained and therefore untouchable. There's a quiet beauty in that independence. It's the look in a man's eyes when he no longer needs permission to live on his own terms. He may still love, but he does so freely without losing himself in the process. He may still care, but he never compromises his peace to prove it. That's the paradox of solitude. It feels lonely at first, but over time it becomes the foundation of true connection with yourself, with purpose, with reality. Only a man who knows how to be alone can ever truly choose love, because he no longer needs it to survive. And that, perhaps, is the secret most men never discover until it's too late. There's a difference between being single and being free. Many men are technically single, but still enslaved, haunted by their exes, addicted to attention, or obsessed with finding the next one. Freedom begins when you no longer crave escape through romance. It's when you realize that peace doesn't come from company, it comes from control. A man who owns his solitude no longer seeks permission to live. He doesn't ask if his ambitions are too much, if his goals are too selfish, or if his independence is too intimidating. He simply acts. He travels, learns, and invests not to impress anyone, but because every action aligns with his personal vision. This is where strength grows quietly, not in grand gestures, but in the discipline of a man who answers to no one but himself. In contrast, the man who builds his life around approval becomes trapped in invisible chains. He may wear the mask of a family man, but behind it lies a silent exhaustion. Every decision, what to buy, where to go, how to spend his time, must pass through another's filter. And as years pass, his spark fades. His freedom dissolves into obligation. His laughter turns into politeness. The man who once dreamed of conquering the world now asks permission to leave the house. Freedom is not rebellion, it's awareness. It's the ability to see the cost of compromise before paying it. When you live alone, your time is your currency, and you spend it on things that matter. You can work through the night without arguments waiting at dawn. You can pursue danger ambition or silence without needing to explain yourself. You live as if your life belongs entirely to you because it does. This is the secret. No one tells men. Independence isn't coldness, it's clarity. When you no longer depend on anyone for validation, you stop negotiating your peace. You stop explaining your goals. You stop shrinking to fit into someone else's comfort zone. Solitude gives you the space to breathe, to think, to act with precision. And from that space, something profound happens. Confidence becomes natural. Focus becomes effortless. You start attracting respect instead of pity because people can sense that you no longer need them, you choose them. That's what real power feels like, not dominance over others, but mastery over yourself. Self-reliance is the silent backbone of a man's strength. In solitude, a man learns the art of sustaining himself financially, emotionally, spiritually. He no longer depends on someone else to fill his emptiness or validate his worth. The need for a better half fades because he realizes he was never incomplete to begin with. He begins to build not from desperation, but from direction. The illusion of partnership as salvation has destroyed countless men. They pour everything time, money, trust into women who, the moment life turns difficult, walk away with half of what those men built. Society praises the family man, but rarely the man who stands alone and builds something greater without sacrificing himself to the demands of others. Yet, it's this solitary builder who endures longer because he's anchored in himself, not in approval. True independence isn't about rejecting love, it's about never making love your only lifeline. A man who depends on a woman to feel stable is always one argument away from collapse. But a man who depends on discipline, work, and purpose is unshakable. His peace can't be taken because it was never borrowed. To be self-reliant means more than paying your own bills or cooking your own meals. It's emotional sovereignty. You handle your storms quietly. You face your insecurities head-on. You take responsibility for your pain without seeking a savior. And in doing so, you develop a calm that no betrayal can destroy. Some will say, this mindset is cold, that it turns love into a transaction. But the truth is the opposite. Only a self-sufficient man can love freely. When you don't need someone, every act of affection becomes a choice, not a negotiation. You give because you want to, not because you fear being alone. That's what makes your presence powerful. It's voluntary, not desperate. Over time, this strength radiates. You become the kind of man who doesn't chase approval or cling to temporary comfort. You walk away when something threatens your peace. You stay only where growth exists. And every day, you remain self-reliant. You reinforce an identity that no failure, breakup, or betrayal can touch. Because in the end, solitude doesn't make you less human, it makes you whole. Every man who's lived long enough has seen how fragile security becomes when it's built on someone else's emotions. The man who ties his financial stability or career to a relationship often wakes up one day with nothing left except regret. Love turns sour, trust breaks, and suddenly everything he worked for is split, sold, or taken. What he thought was a partnership was really a dependency disguised as affection. Marriage for many men has become an unspoken risk contract. You invest your time, your energy, your money. Yet the moment things go wrong, the system doesn't protect you. It punishes you. Divorce courts don't divide fairly. They divide sentimentally. One bad choice can erase decades of discipline. Men lose their homes, their savings, sometimes even access to their children. And after the damage, society offers no sympathy, only silence. But solitude changes that story. The single man owns everything he earns. He directs his wealth like a general, commands his army strategically, purposefully, without compromise. He builds assets, not attachments. He invests in growth instead of gifts. He channels his effort into things that appreciate over time skills, knowledge, business, rather than people who might depreciate in loyalty. Freedom from financial dependence also sharpens the mind. A man who isn't distracted by emotional chaos can focus on expansion, career, investments, legacy. He learns that discipline compounds faster than romance ever will. And when he looks back, he sees results, not heartbreaks. His life becomes proof that stability doesn't come from sharing your burden, it comes from mastering it. Yet this isn't about bitterness. It's about clarity. Not all women destroy men's lives, but enough stories exist to remind you that love without wisdom is dangerous. The world rewards the man who builds, not the man who gives everything away. So guard your resources, not out of fear, but out of respect for what you've earned. Every dollar, every hour, every ounce of focus you possess is sacred energy. It's the currency of your freedom. Spend it wisely, not impulsively. Because in the end, power doesn't belong to the man who provides the most, it belongs to the man who protects what he's built. Emotional chaos destroys men more quietly than poverty ever could. A man can recover from a lost job, a failed business, even a broken friendship. But constant emotional turmoil eats away at his health, his confidence, and his will to live. Relationships built on control, jealousy, or manipulation don't just exhaust a man. They dismantle him piece by piece. He stops sleeping well. He stops training. He stops dreaming. His fire turns into fatigue. Many men live this nightmare without realizing it. They wake up each day walking on eggshells, avoiding arguments, hiding emotions, pretending everything is fine. The weight of being the strong one in a relationship that offers no peace eventually crushes even the toughest souls. Over time, stress seeps into the body, causing blood pressure to rise, focus to fade, and motivation to wane. And the saddest part, society still tells these men that enduring this pain makes them noble. But solitude teaches the opposite. It teaches that peace is not a luxury, it's a matter of survival. A man who lives alone learns to protect his energy like it's oxygen. He eats clean, trains hard, and rests deeply. His body becomes his temple, his mind, his fortress. No shouting matches, no emotional blackmail, just discipline, quiet, and strength. He starts to see how much energy he once wasted trying to fix what was never his to fix. Freedom from drama isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's waking up without anxiety, walking through your day without fear of emotional explosions, sleeping at night, knowing your mind belongs to you. It's a kind of calm most people will never experience because they confuse chaos with passion and tension with love. This kind of freedom gives birth to a different breed of man. His presence is grounded, his actions deliberate. He doesn't chase validation or react to provocation. He's not emotionally numb, he's emotionally disciplined. He understands that strength isn't in enduring suffering, but in avoiding unnecessary pain. And that's the secret. No one tells men the quieter your life becomes, the louder your power grows. Solitude doesn't isolate you, it refines you. It gives you back the energy the world once drained. When you stop fighting pointless battles, you finally have the strength to conquer meaningful ones. In the end, solitude isn't the enemy, it's the teacher. It strips away illusion ego and noise until only truth remains. Every man must face that moment when the world's expectations fall silent and he stands alone with himself. That's where clarity is born. You realize that no one is coming to save you, no one is obligated to understand you, and no one can carry your pain for you. And strangely, that realization doesn't break you. It builds you. Being single is not about isolation. It's about liberation. It's not about running from love, but about no longer being enslaved by it. The man who embraces solitude isn't rejecting intimacy, he's purifying it. He's learning that love without freedom is just attachment, and attachment without awareness is suffering. True strength is not in how much you can give others, but in how deeply you can remain centered when everything around you demands a reaction. The world may still whisper that you're incomplete without a partner, but you'll know better. You'll know that peace, not validation, is the highest form of love. You'll see that mastery over your emotions is far more valuable than mastery over anyone else. And you'll understand that the real measure of a man isn't how many people depend on him, but how little he depends on others. When you can sit in silence and feel no fear, when your thoughts no longer turn into regret or longing, that's when you've arrived. That's when solitude transforms from emptiness into empowerment. You no longer live reactively. You live intentionally. Every choice becomes deliberate. Every action becomes sacred. So to every man who walks this path, choose solitude not as escape, but as ascension. Use it to build discipline, wealth, and peace. Let others chase comfort. You chase clarity. Because once you've tasted true freedom, dependence feels like death. No one can take away a man who belongs fully to himself.